opening remarks from both, and then we will get into your questions. And I will give the floor first to the Commissioner.
Thank you, and ladies and gentlemen, here we are again. Truly happy to be here for what is my second COP as EU Chief Negotiator. And I'm intimately familiar with the fact that at the start of the second week, we have the moment where many of you write that, we're very far apart as negotiators. And let's address the elephant in the room right away. Yes, if you look at the geopolitical context, that is, of course, in the back of everyone's minds during these negotiations, the context is indeed difficult. But then again, when has it ever been easy? I truly believe that despite the grim geopolitical context, we can and should have a good result by the end of this week. Ladies and gentlemen, while the UNEP emissions gap report says we're not yet on track to keep our 1.5-degree target, it is also very clear that technically, at the very least, we can do it. So that means, and that implies, that the challenge we're facing truly is political. And that is a challenge we face here as negotiators. So this week, in this venue, let's tone down the background noise and double down on the negotiations we have in front of us. As for the EU's role, we will continue to lead. We will continue to build bridges to countries from all over the globe, and we will continue to engage. We're a natural bridge builder, it is in our DNA, and we've always come to COPs with high ambition, and that kept us moving forward towards the Paris Agreement goals. And at Cop28, we managed to bring everyone together to really reach ambitious results. And I'm here, and the team is here, with the same energy and exactly the same ambition. It is clearly a steep climb, but we are truly ready for it. So let me also take this opportunity to call on the COP presidency to start bringing parties together around more concrete texts as early as possible this week. There is a clear and heavy responsibility, as always, on the shoulders of the COP presidency to bring these important but difficult talks to a conclusion. This is truly a conference of parties, and ministers are ready to work. But we do need a presidency to lead and to steer us in the direction of a safe landing ground. Let me briefly turn to the NCQG. We all know it is never easy in politics, and neither is it in international politics, to talk about money. But the cost of action today is, as a matter of fact, much lower than the cost of inaction and later on reacting to climate disasters. So we all have a role to play. As I said, we will continue to lead, to do our fair share and even more than our fair share, as we've always done. And public finance should remain at the core of the NCQG. But three critical things need to be clear as well. One is, with affluence comes responsibility. Others have a responsibility to contribute based on their emissions and based on their economic growth. Two, the money needs to go first and foremost to these countries most in need, to the most vulnerable amongst us. And three, the reality is that there will never, ever be enough public money from any source. So what we need to do here in this week is to have more resources on the table. And we're here to design a system that reflects these realities of our world. Economic and emissions realities. Then on Article 6, one way to drive more private sector contributions is through carbon pricing and through carbon markets. And that is why we're also negotiating the completion of the Paris Agreement rules governing international carbon markets. And this is a truly very important work stream, a potentially very impactful work stream this week. Finally, allow me to say a few words on mitigation. It is imperative that we send a strong signal this week for the next round of NDCs. And we must follow on our historic decision in Dubai to truly transition away from fossil fuels. And in that light, the announcements by Brazil, by the UAE itself, and by the UK are very positive and very promising. In the European Union, we're also planning an ambitious NDC in line with the 1.5 goal. We're on the right track in Europe. The EU has reduced its greenhouse gas emissions by over 8% in 2023, which is one of our largest cuts ever. And we need and we will continue to keep the pace. So, ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, it is the start of a long week of negotiations. And these things, as we all know, are never easy. But we do have a job to do, so let's get it done. Let me pause there and hand over to you, Attila.
Thank you very much, Wopke. Dear members of the press, dear ladies and gentlemen, also warm welcome on behalf of the Hungarian EU presidency. I can report to you that many ministers are already here from European Union member states, and we are doing a very close coordination with all of the member states from the EU. And I can also confirm what Wopke said, that the EU is very committed to take the lead in the negotiations, and the EU believes that an ambitious outcome in Baku is the one that signals that we are all united in the fight against climate change. Following the decision in Dubai, it is our duty to ensure that the domestic and international implementation of the global stocktake is ambitious, credible, and 1.5 degrees Celsius aligned. In this aspect, the message of the European Union is very clear. We need a substantive, ambitious, and robust outcome on mitigation. Mitigation with 3 priorities. Mitigation which follows up on the progress of the implementation of the global stocktake. Secondly, that recognizes the existing solutions on implementation. And thirdly, which sends ambitious signals on the practical solutions for the upcoming NDCs. And this is a clear priority for us and the outside world. The business sector, the public are also requiring us to send strong signals how the world should proceed on the energy transition, and clearly mitigation is one of the key tools. And we established this process to jointly respond to climate change, having a space to discuss mitigation. Therefore, it is an inherent part of our work. And let me also remind us that the Paris Agreement is also about how to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions and to keep the 1.5 Celsius degree goal. So that's why mitigation is actually the main notion of the Paris Agreement. And on the road to Berlin, Cop29 should reconfirm our determination to transition away from fossil fuels and accelerate the energy transition, as all agreed last year. And the transition is possible. The EU's example is also showing that we have a continuously growing economy in the European Union. However, we managed to cut significantly emissions. And this transition is also necessary, and it concerns all the parties around the table and stakeholders around the world. On the NCQG, we need to increase the pace of our work during the second week, and I think ministerial engagement will be essential for the highly political elements of the goal that are basically structure, quantum, and group of contributors in order to reach an ambitious but yet realistic outcome put together by a wide range of contributors in a sense of global solidarity. We are also hoping to conclude the negotiations under Article 6, as this would also mobilize much needed resources based on market mechanisms, while we ensure environmental and social integrity in the same time. We are also ready to continue making progress on the work on adaptation indicators here in Baku. So all in all, we are committed in the fight against climate change and available to work with all of the parties to achieve a successful outcome which the world expects from us. So we are here in Baku to deliver. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, State Secretary. Thank you very much, Commissioner. I'll take a few questions. I'll start right here in the front row. I'll take the two people sitting next to each other in the front. And the microphone should be coming to you.
Victoria Seabrook, Sky News. Thanks for this. You talked about background noise and geopolitics being difficult. People here saying that they need a clear steer from the G20, but are EU leaders distracted by what's happening in Ukraine? How difficult is that making things here?
Okay. Yeah, if you like.
Well, thank you. And clearly, you know, the horrible war the Russians continue to wage in Ukraine is a huge thing all across European capitals. And we will continue to stand with our Ukrainian friends as long as it takes. And yet, the problem we face in terms of climate is not going away. It needs to be addressed in full by the world at large. So as much as it is imperative for Europe to work on safety and security and to help out our Ukrainian friends, at the same time we are here to deliver. And that is exactly the spirit, not only the European Unions, but the European Union, but also all the ministers from the European capitals are bringing to this conference. We've just been in the room with them, and there truly is the spirit. We're here to lead, we're here to contribute, we're here to build bridges, we're here to engage with countries from the north, the south, the east, and the west.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Yeah. Yes, next along the line.
Thank you, Lorenzo Tecleme from Italian Media El Manifesto. There is a figure here that is very popular, the $1.3 trillion from 2035. Is that a figure that Europe could like?
You know, in what I've learned in these type of negotiations is that it is typically not helpful to make, you know, all sorts of sweeping statements about these type of amounts, but it truly articulates, you know, what our ambition is here. Our ambition is to ASAP move forward on all the various and large domains that we have on the table here. And that clearly involves the financing. That clearly involves transitioning away from fossil fuels. And that clearly means doing much more in terms of carbon markets. And these are, if you will, the three main important points, the most important points on the agenda. In terms of financing, it is, as I've just said before, it is a combination of raising more money, and more truly implies that more countries need to take their responsibility. It means involving private sector financing, not as an alternative, but as a top-on. And we need to make sure that the money lands with the most vulnerable. That is absolutely imperative if we want to create and bring fairness to the system.
Okay, take some from the other side of the room. I'll go a bit further back. I'll go to the third row. Gentleman with the longer hair and the striped shirt.
Hi, I'm Josh Gabatis from Carbon Brief. Would the EU be able to accept some kind of decision on finance that recognises voluntary contributions from developing countries? There's been some reporting that said that the G20 have come to some sort of statement which says that which recognises voluntary contributions from developing countries. Would that be sufficient here, or do you need something further than that?
So, what is a reality in these negotiations, what is a reality that the world agreed on earlier on, is this categorization of developed and developing. And yet, we also see that a range of countries have made tremendous economic progress in the last couple of decades. And good for them. I think it is an amazing achievement if you see what a range of countries have done. Our view is that, you know, with that affluence, with more economic growth, also comes the responsibility to do more in terms of burden sharing, because this truly is a global problem. And yet I do recognize that for countries it is typically difficult to leave entrenched positions and move officially from one category to the next. So a potential solution could be indeed to, without leaving these classic positions, to do move into a space of voluntary contributions. And in that sense, you know, we would be open and we would be welcoming to those countries who do make such a step, because in the end, this is not about dogmatism. This is about solving one of the largest problems that humanity is facing in this period of time.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, yeah, State Secretary.
One comment to that question, that I fully agree that, yes, of course, the more voluntary contributions, the better. However, you should see the big picture that actually the European Union is responsible for 6.5% of the global emissions. However, in case of financing, we already have a much higher share. It's around 1/3 of the total financing. So we already took our part. But of course, the challenges are also growing. So that's why we encourage everyone to contribute as much as possible.
Thank you. There's a lady in the second row.
Esme Salah, BBC News. The negotiations are still going on the Lima work programme at the moment. There's a line in there which is still in brackets about acknowledging that women and girls are vulnerable to climate change. That shouldn't really be a controversial statement. Who's blocking the fact of having that in there as a line of text, and what's the EU doing to resolve that?
To be honest, the sound is not optimal here. I couldn't hear the exact line you were quoting, but in general, I think the negotiations, you know, are helped the most, you know, by not taking specific parts out and prejudging them, regardless of our own specific position. Also, in terms of bridge building, it typically doesn't help to pre-conclude them from this podium.
If I may, just to compliment Commissioner, we did issue an EU statement on the eve of COP about prioritizing this issue, so I can send that to you if that's helpful.
What was it about?
About gender.
Okay. Yeah. By the way, we did address it. That is maybe good to articulate as well. We did specifically address this in our EU coordination meeting, given that it is so important for us as a European Union. Okay. Apologies for not being able to hear you because of the sound.
I'll go next to the third row here, right in front of me.
Urmi Goswami from the Economic Times. To follow up on George's question, is it enough for the EU that, you know, the certain countries that you mentioned who have become affluent are recognized as already putting in money through climate contributions for climate action in developing countries? Is that enough for the EU? Vis-a-vis the thing about increasing contributor base, is that recognition enough? And second, to the same answer, you said something to the effect of how it should be about it becoming a voluntary space. Are you saying that the EU is actually wanting to move to a space where all contributions become voluntary? That is, no more obligations? Is that what you're saying?
Maybe to the first part of your question. Yes, indeed, we would like to have a larger contributor base. I think there are many contributors already which are not calculated into the big picture. And also what I think has a clear potential, this is market mechanisms like Article 6, which can bring additional financing capabilities based on market mechanisms. So I think combination of many things that could help us to progress.
Okay, we have a question on the end of the second row here.
Maybe just briefly on your question. So we will continue to stick with our commitments, and we're here to make sure that we continue to lead, and basically that there's a larger group of countries that will continue to do more rather than less. What I meant to say is that in order to bridge this classic categorization of developed and developing, my pattern recognition so far has been that those in the developing category that have accumulated significant affluence, and in some cases actually more than that of many member states in the European Union, still find it difficult to leave that category officially. And regardless of what I think of that, that is simply a reality. And in order to make sure that these countries still feel the liberty to contribute, I do see a potential landing zone of them not moving and jumping boxes to the developed category, but move into a voluntary contribution. That is what I tried to say.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, second.
Thank you. My name is Parvana Baydamova, Voice of America, Azerbaijan Department. My question is about how can European Union to implement projects for transporting green energy from Azerbaijan to Europe?
For all of you, maybe you wouldn't mind shouting at us because it enhances the conversation. Could you repeat the last bit of the question?
Question is how can European Union help to implement projects for transporting green energy from Azerbaijan to Europe?
Transporting green energy from Azerbaijan to Europe.
Yes, I think there are many initiatives. Also, this region is considered as diversification options for Europe. And this is also acknowledged by several European member states and also by the European Commission. And the Green Energy Corridor is clearly such an initiative. And here, of course, there was also a special initiative of the COP presidency on that topic. So I think for the European Union, it's the better that we can import and diversify our energy supplies. And if it's clean energy, then that's even better. So I see this project could very clearly fit to our strategic objectives.
Okay, thank you very much. One here in the front row.
Hi, thank you for this. Emanuela Biloglio from Carbon Pulse. I have 3 questions. One is on NDCs and the climate law, which was supposed to come out mid-December or early next year. Why is the Commission not doing anything right now on NDC? Why is it delaying the process? Because it doesn't seem like EU is no longer a first mover. The second question is about CBAM. Is it making negotiations more difficult with developing countries in particular? And my third question is on voluntary carbon markets. In the text that just dropped, there is a possibility to have them contributing to climate finance. What would it mean and who is baking it, who's not? Thanks.
So first on the NDCs, and clearly we have the desire and the ability to lead in that field as well. And you know that there are crystal clear ambitions also in my mission letter for the next Commission. However, there is also the election cycle and the cycle of the new Commission getting into place that we have to deal with. That is a reality, by the way, that all geographies face, and that on the one hand brings renewal, but also gives always a bit of a time delay. But I trust that we will come up with something that is very meaningful and ambition ASAP. Secondly, on CBAM, my experience is that when you have a conversation with countries from across the globe, there is actually significant understanding that this tool is exactly there for the right reasons. It is a tool to prevent carbon leakage. That is the very nature of it. And what I always tell people is that the best CBAM is one that doesn't make any money. That has never been the objective. The objective is to make sure that carbon leakage from the European Union is being prevented, and that we make sure that overall the footprint of the world goes down. And what I think is very positive is that both on CBAM, but more generally in the domain of carbon markets, there's huge appetite. And there has been significant interactions with me, but also with all the great people working for the task force within the Commission to make sure that more countries embark on this. One of the most effective things humanity can do to tackle this problem is pricing carbon and moving forward in the second domain you're mentioning, carbon credits. Maybe one sentence on that, and maybe Attila has things to add. It would be great if we could make progress in that domain as well. What we do need to make sure, though, is that when we continue with carbon credits, the certification and the verification and where we set the bar is truly at the right level. Because we do not help anyone to basically to move forward with a system that lacks the integrity. So integrity is key. And once we have it, it is a huge step forward for countries developed and developing.
maybe to add to this last point, I think a market works well if it works on a transparent basis and accountability is there and no double counting is there. So there's very clear rules, and then it will be able to mobilize very substantial market funds, which can be then achieve significant investments and reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Actually, in Europe, that works quite well with the ETS system, and we have also in several member states voluntary carbon markets additionally. So I think these are excellent tools to mobilize not only public funds but also market players' funds.
Okay, I think we have time for one more. I'll take the gentleman who's standing on the side, holding the camera.
BBC News Azerbaijan Service, Fard Hasanov. And my first question is about what are your hopes about signing the final agreement on the financing the underdeveloped countries, which is a major topic of Cop29 in Baku during this week. And the second part of my question is about Trump is expected to withdraw his country from the Paris Agreement, how it will affect the climate talks and effectively, and especially EU's policy in this regard. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So in terms of our hopes and the financing, as I said before, it is imperative that the world raises more money, particularly for the most vulnerable. Those are countries who bear very little, if any, responsibility in heating up of our planet, and are typically the ones most in harm's way. So I feel it is imperative that we make sure there's more public and more private sector financing being brought to the table to help out our partners most in need. So that will be our objective, and therefore it is crystal clear that we need to broaden the solution space. Secondly, what I would very much hope is that we can keep the integrity of this conference and this spirit of cooperation for all nations across the globe together, because this truly is a global problem we're facing. And therefore it is absolutely critical that we keep everyone, certainly those in a position of influence, of power, of clout around the table, and ready to engage here with all of us. Thank you.
Okay, if the State Secretary doesn't want to add anything, I will bring it to a close there. Just to already give you a heads up, we will have another EU press conference on Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock with the Commissioner and the head of the European Parliament delegation. And of course, we're here to help you with any questions that you have during the week. Thank you very much, Commissioner. Thank you, State Secretary. Yes.